The discovery beneath Antarctic ice, the drill bit, had been spinning for 18 hours straight when it finally hit something that wasn't ice. Dr. Alina Vasquez felt the vibration change through the metal framework of the drilling platform, a subtle shift that made her look up from her tablet where she'd been logging core samples. "Jake, we've got an obstruction at 3,847 meters. She called to Commander Jake Morrison, who was checking equipment readings at the main console. The former Navy SEAL turned expedition leader had been running Antarctic Research Station for 3 years, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for what they were about to discover. "What kind of obstruction?" Jake asked, his weathered hands dancing across the control interface. "Ice density change. Rock formation." Alina frowned at her readings. "Neither. The drill bit is hitting something metallic, but the sonar isn't showing any geological formations at that depth. This ice layer should be solid for another kilometer down." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the expedition's quantum physicist, abandoned her coffee and joined them at the drilling console. Her expertise in exotic matter and energy signatures had earned her a place on this remote research team, though she'd never expected to use those skills in Antarctica. "The electromagnetic readings are off the charts," Yuki said, studying the data streaming across her screen. "Whatever's down there is generating some kind of energy field, even after being frozen for who knows how long." Professor Samuel Chen looked up from his linguistic analysis station where he'd been cataloging ancient ice formations for historical climate data. The Singaporean cryptographer had joined the expedition to study how ancient weather patterns might have preserved lost information in ice crystals, but the energy signatures Yuki was describing caught his attention immediately. Energy field in ice that old. Samuel adjusted his glasses and moved closer to examine the readings. According to the carbon dating on the ice cores, that depth represents approximately 4,719 years of accumulation. Jake made the decision that would change everything. "We're going down there." Alina prepped the thermal lance. "If there's something buried at that depth, we need to see what it is." The thermal lance carved through the ice like a hot knife through butter, creating a perfect circular shaft wide enough for their descent team. Alina led the way, rappelling down through the translucent blue walls of compressed ice that held the history of Earth's climate. Jake followed, then Yuki, and finally Samuel, each carrying specialized equipment for whatever they might encounter. At 3,840 meters, Elena's headlamp illuminated something impossible. Embedded in the ice was a curved surface of dark metal that reflected their lights with an oily rainbow sheen. The surface was perfectly smooth, untouched by the pressure that should have crushed anything at this depth over thousands of years. "This shouldn't exist," Alina whispered, running her gloved hand along the exposed surface. "The pressure down here would have destroyed any human-made object millennia ago. But this looks like it was placed here yesterday." Jake anchored his climbing gear and began setting up the portable heaters they'd brought. "Let's expose more of it before we jump to conclusions. Could be a meteorite with unusual mineral properties." As the ice melted away under the directed heat, more of the object became visible. It wasn't a meteorite. The curved surface revealed itself to be part of a larger structure, clearly artificial, with what appeared to be viewing ports or sensor arrays embedded in its hull. "Guys," Yuki said, her voice tight with excitement and fear, "I'm reading massive energy reserves from inside this thing. Whatever it is, it's not dead, it's dormant." Samuel was documenting everything with his camera, but his mind was racing ahead to implications. The craftsmanship, the materials, the preservation. This technology is beyond anything we've achieved. This isn't human in origin. Alina felt her heart pounding as the full scope of their discovery became clear. They'd found what appeared to be an alien spacecraft, perfectly preserved in Antarctic ice for nearly 5,000 years. But as they worked to expose more of the craft, something unexpected happened. The hull began to warm under their touch. "Temperature's rising," Jake reported, checking his instruments. "The entire surface is heating up from the inside. It's responding." To our presence, Yuki realized, her quantum physics training recognizing the signatures of active scanning systems, our thermal signatures, our electromagnetic fields. Something we're doing is waking it up. A seam appeared in the hull where none had existed before, running in a perfect line for 3 meters before forming a rectangular outline. The metal within the rectangle became translucent, then transparent, revealing an airlock chamber-sized. For beings roughly human-sized, Alina looked at Jake. "It's inviting us in." "Absolutely not," Jake said automatically, his military training screaming danger. "We don't know what kind of atmosphere is in there, what kind of biological hazards we might encounter, or if the damn thing might take off with us inside. But we also don't know if this is a first contact situation," Samuel argued. "If this craft has been waiting here for 4,719 years, and it's responding to our presence, maybe it was meant to be found." Yuki was studying her readings with growing amazement. The energy signature is stabilizing, not increasing. Whatever's happening inside, it's controlled, purposeful. This isn't a malfunction or emergency activation. It's a welcome protocol. Alina made the decision for all of them. We're going in. This is why we're here, why we became scientists, to discover what's never been discovered before. The airlock cycled them through with technology that was both alien and strangely familiar, using principles of pressure equalization that human engineers would recognize, while employing materials and methods that were completely unknown. The inner chamber they emerged into took their breath away. The interior of the craft was vast, far larger than the external dimensions they'd observed. The walls curved organically, embedded with what appeared to be living light that pulsed gently. In response to their movement, the air was breathable, though it carried a scent like ozone mixed with something floral they couldn't identify. But what dominated the central chamber was a pillar of crystalline material that stretched from floor to ceiling, glowing with soft blue light. As they approached, symbols began appearing in the crystal's depths, shifting and flowing like liquid mercury. "It's beautiful," Alina breathed, reaching toward the crystal. "Don't touch anything yet," Jake warned, but his voice lacked conviction. The chamber felt peaceful, welcoming, as if they'd been expected. Samuel was frantically recording the symbols as they appeared and dissolved in the crystal. "These aren't random. There's definitely a linguistic structure here. Mathematical relationships, recurring patterns that suggest communication." That's when the voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere, resonating not just in the air, but seemingly in their bones, their thoughts. The language was alien, but somehow they understood the emotional content: greeting, relief, hope, and an overwhelming sense of longing. "Greetings, children of Earth," the voice said, now speaking in perfect English. "We have been waiting for you for 4,719 of your years. My name is Kethva, and I am the keeper of the final message of the Kaleri people." The 4 humans stood frozen, minds reeling with the implications. This was first contact, but it wasn't what any of them had imagined. This wasn't a living alien, but something else entirely. You are artificial intelligence, Samuel managed to ask. I am the consciousness of Kethfa, digitized and preserved in quantum substrate to maintain our message until the proper time. I have waited in this chamber while your species grew from scattered tribes to a civilization capable of reaching the stars. We chose this location because our calculations showed it would preserve us until you developed the technology to find us. Alina found her voice. Your calculations. You've been planning this contact for nearly 5,000 years. Much longer, Kethfa replied, and the crystal began displaying images, star maps, planetary systems, and finally a world orbiting a distant star. We are from Kepler 4 for to be 1,200 light-years from your world. My people were the Kalari, and we spent millennia preparing worlds throughout the galaxy for the emergence of intelligent life. Yuki stepped forward, her scientific mind grappling with the implications. You're terraformers. You've been seeding worlds across the galaxy. More than terraformers, we were gardeners of consciousness itself. We would arrive at worlds showing potential for intelligent life and subtly guide their development, ensuring they would have the tools they needed when the time came for them to reach the stars. Jake's military instincts were still alert. What happened to your people? Why are you alone? The crystal's light dimmed, and when Kethfa spoke again, there was profound sadness in the artificial voice. Our son died unexpectedly, a stellar collapse that gave us only decades to prepare. We managed to evacuate our entire remaining population, but not in the way you might expect. The images in the crystal showed massive structures around a dying star, ships launching not into space, but into some kind of energy collectors. We digitized ourselves, our consciousness, our memories, our entire civilization. 2.3 million Kalari minds preserved in quantum storage, waiting. Alina felt tears in her eyes. Waiting for what? For a species to develop the technology and wisdom to help us return to physical form. We have been searching the galaxy for such a species, and our observations of humanity over the centuries have shown us remarkable promise. Samuel was recording everything, but his mind was racing with questions. You've been watching us. Not directly. We left monitoring stations throughout your solar system, devices that would track your development and send signals when you reached certain technological thresholds. Your discovery of quantum mechanics, your first steps into space, your development of digital consciousness research. Each milestone brought us closer to this moment. The full magnitude of what they were facing hit Jake like a physical blow. You're asking us to resurrect your entire species. We are offering you partnership, Kethfa corrected. Our technology, our knowledge of terraforming and space travel, our 50,000 years of experience guiding civilizations, in exchange for help returning to physical form. Alina looked around at her companions, seeing the same mixture of excitement and terror in their faces that she felt. This isn't a decision we can make for all of humanity. We understand, but the choice must be made soon. The quantum storage that preserves my people is failing. We have perhaps 100 of your years before the data degradation becomes irreversible. After 4,719 years of waiting, time is finally running short. Yuki was studying the readings from her instruments with growing amazement. The technology you're describing, it could solve Earth's climate crisis, couldn't it? The terraforming knowledge, the clean energy systems I'm detecting in this ship. Your world is in crisis, as ours was. The difference is that you still have time to save it, and we have the tools to help you do so. But the choice must be freely made, by representatives of your species acting with full knowledge of what they decide. Samuel looked up from his linguistic analysis. How do we know you're telling the truth? How do we know this isn't some kind of invasion plan disguised as a rescue mission? The crystal pulsed, and suddenly each of them felt something impossible. They were experiencing Kethva's memories directly. The death of a son, the desperate scramble to save a civilization, the agonizing choice to abandon physical form in hopes of digital immortality, the loneliness of waiting centuries in the dark ice, hoping that somewhere in the galaxy, another species might develop the compassion and technology to offer help. When the experience ended, Alina was sobbing. You're not invaders, you're refugees. We are the last of our kind, preserved in digital amber, hoping that somewhere in this vast galaxy we might find kindness. Your species has shown remarkable creativity, determination, and capacity for growth. You have also shown remarkable capacity for destruction and selfishness. The choice of which aspect of humanity will guide this decision is yours to make. Jake straightened, his military bearing asserting itself. We need to contact our governments, the United Nations, the scientific community. This is bigger than the four of us. Indeed it is, Kethva agreed. But know this, the moment you leave this chamber and share what you have learned, the choice period begins. Other powers in your galaxy have also been watching Earth's development. Some are not as benevolent as the Kalari. The implication hung in the air like a threat. Humanity was about to face its first major decision as a species on the verge of becoming truly spacefaring, and the choices they made would echo across the galaxy. Alina looked at the crystal one more time. What do you need from us to make this work? Time, technology, and trust, Kethva replied. The knowledge to construct physical forms that can house digital consciousness, the wisdom to integrate to species without losing the best qualities of either, and the faith that this partnership can benefit both our peoples. As they prepared to leave the chamber and return to the surface with the most important news in human history, Alina realized that everything was about to change. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and the choices they made in the coming months would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of an entire alien civilization that had waited nearly 5,000 years for this moment. The crystal continued to pulse with gentle light as they entered the airlock, and Kethva's voice followed them. We chose well to wait for you, children of Earth. Now let us see if you choose well in return. Part 2. The last message and humanity's choice. The ascent to the surface felt like emerging from one world into another. Elena's mind raced as they climbed through the shaft they'd carved, carrying with them knowledge that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The Kalari ship remained active far below, its gentle hum resonating through the ice like a patient heartbeat. Jake was already on his satellite phone before they'd even secured their climbing gear, placing encrypted calls to contacts in military intelligence and the scientific community. Alina could hear fragments of his conversations as she packed their equipment. Priority Alpha classification. Immediate consultation required. No, this is not a drill. How long before the world knows? Yuki asked, checking her instruments. One final time. The readings from below showed the Kalari ship maintaining stable power levels, its ancient systems apparently optimized for the long wait. 48 hours, maybe less, Jake replied, ending his latest call. The UN Security Council is convening an emergency session, and every major government is mobilizing their xenological response teams. teams that most people didn't even know existed until today. Samuel was transcribing the linguistic patterns he'd recorded, his fingers flying across his tablet's keyboard. I've identified at least 37 distinct symbol clusters in Kethva's communication matrix. The mathematical relationships suggest this language has been specifically designed for cross-species communication. Alina studied the preliminary analysis Samuel was sharing. Designed? You mean they created a universal language? More than that, I think they've been preparing for this conversation for thousands of years, refining their communication protocols. Based on observation of human linguistic development, they know exactly how to talk to us because they've been watching us learn to talk. The implications sent a chill through Alina that had nothing to do with the Antarctic wind. How much do they know about us? About our governments, our conflicts, our weaknesses? Before anyone could speculate further, Jake's phone rang with the tone reserved for highest priority communications. He answered immediately, his expression growing grim as he listened. Understood. Will maintain position and await the arrival team. He ended the call and looked at his companions. We have company coming. A joint international team will be here in 6 hours, led by representatives from NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, and the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs. Dr. Chen, your linguistic expertise has already been requested by name. How did they know to ask for me specifically? Samuel wondered. Because this situation has protocols, Jake explained. Protocols that were apparently developed decades ago by people who knew this day might come. First contact scenarios, response procedures, chain of command structures for situations exactly like this. Alina felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. They knew. Our governments have been preparing for alien contact. Some people knew something was possible, Jake corrected. The question is how much they knew and how long they've known it. The sound of approaching helicopters interrupted their discussion. Jake checked his watch, frowning. That's not the international team. They're not due for hours. 3 military helicopters crested the ridge surrounding Research Station, bearing insignia Alina didn't recognize. They landed in precise formation, disgorging teams of personnel in environmental suits who immediately began establishing a perimeter around the drilling site. A woman in a pristine Arctic survival suit approached their group, her bearing clearly military despite the civilian gear. Dr. Vasquez, Commander Morrison, Dr. Tanaka, Professor Chen. I'm Director Sarah Walsh, Department of Xenological Studies. We need to debrief you immediately. Alina had never heard of the Department of Studies, but Director Walsh's authority was unmistakable. How long has your department existed? Longer than you might expect, shorter than we might have hoped, Walsh replied diplomatically. What matters now is understanding exactly what you've discovered and determining the appropriate response. As they were escorted to a temporary command center the arriving team had established with remarkable efficiency, Alina caught Jake's eye. His expression confirmed her suspicions. This level of preparedness didn't happen overnight. Someone had been expecting this discovery, or something like it. The debriefing lasted for hours. Alina, Jake, Yuki, and Samuel recounted every detail of their encounter with Kethva, while specialists recorded, analyzed, and cross-referenced their accounts. Director Walsh asked precise questions that revealed she understood far more about xenological contact protocols than someone learning about alien life for the first time. The entity claimed to represent 2.3 million digitized consciousnesses from Kepler-4 for 2b, Walsh summarized. It requested assistance in creating physical bodies for these digital minds in exchange for advanced terraforming and space travel technology. That's correct, Alina confirmed. But it was more than a request. Kethva made it clear that time is running out. The quantum storage systems preserving the Kalari consciousness are degrading. Walsh consulted her tablet. According to our analysis of your recordings, the entity demonstrated the ability to share memories and emotions directly with human minds. This suggests a level of technological sophistication that could pose significant security risks. Yuki bristled at the implication. Kethva wasn't trying to control us. The memory sharing was to prove their sincerity, to show us they're truly refugees, not invaders. Dr. Tanaka, the ability to directly interface with human consciousness, regardless of intent, represents a capability we must evaluate carefully. Walsh replied, "We have protocols for scenarios like this." Samuel looked up from his linguistic analysis. Director Walsh, with respect, how could you have protocols for a specific scenario like this unless you knew it was going to happen? Walsh's pause before answering spoke volumes. Professor Chen, humanity has been preparing for the possibility of extraterrestrial contact for longer than the public realizes. Various scenarios have been wargamed, from hostile invasion to benevolent guidance. What we have here appears to be something between those extremes. Alina felt her scientific curiosity overriding her growing unease. Director Walsh, are you saying our governments have been in contact with alien species before? I'm saying that certain monitoring systems have detected artificial signals from space for decades. Signals that didn't match any known natural phenomena or human technology. The Kepler 442 system has been one of several sources under observation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Kalari hadn't just been watching humanity. Humanity had been aware of the watchers, at least at the highest levels of government and scientific institutions. Jake's military background helped him process the strategic implications quickly. So this encounter wasn't unexpected. You've been waiting for something like this. We've been preparing for the possibility, Walsh corrected. The question now is how humanity responds to this specific situation. The entity has presented us with an opportunity and a deadline. We need to decide, not just whether to help the Kalari, but whether we can trust them and whether the risks are acceptable. Elena's tablet chimed with an incoming message marked with encryption protocols. She read it quickly, then looked up at the group. It's from Kethva. They're requesting a second meeting, this time with official representatives of human government. Walsh frowned. How did they send you a message? You're not in communication with the craft. The ship's quantum communication systems apparently have a longer range than we realized, Alina explained, showing the message. Kethva says they've been monitoring our surface communications and understand that official contact protocols are being initiated. Samuel was studying the message structure. The linguistic patterns are evolving in real time. They're adapting their communication style based on observing our debriefing sessions. That's either remarkably sophisticated artificial intelligence or an incredibly advanced form of consciousness, Yuki observed. Either way, it demonstrates capabilities we don't fully understand. Walsh made a decision. We're returning to the craft. The international team will arrive to find the situation already assessed and initial contact protocols established. Dr. Vasquez, you'll serve as primary liaison given your existing communication with the entity. The descent back into the ice felt different this time. Alina carried with her the weight of representing not just scientific curiosity, but humanity's official response to first contact. The Galactic ship seemed to sense their approach, its internal lighting increasing as they entered the airlock. Kath was waiting for them in the central chamber, the crystal pillar pulsing with more complex patterns than before. "Greetings, representatives of Earth. I perceive that your governmental structures have been activated in response to our contact." Director Walsh stepped forward, her diplomatic training evident. "I am Director Sarah Walsh, speaking on behalf of the United Nations and the International Xenological Response Coalition. We come seeking to understand your proposal and evaluate the implications for both our species." "A prudent approach," Kethver acknowledged. "You have questions about our capabilities, our intentions, and the risks of the partnership we propose. Ask, and I will answer with complete transparency." Alina found herself speaking before she'd consciously decided to. "Kethver, you mentioned that other powers in the galaxy have been watching Earth. Are we in danger from them?" The crystal's light dimmed slightly. "Your species stands at a crucial threshold. The technology required to resurrect digital consciousness is the same technology needed for faster-than-light travel and advanced terraforming. Once you possess it, you will be visible to galactic civilizations as a mature, spacefaring species. And some of those civilizations are hostile," Walsh asked. "Some are territorial, others are resource-focused. A few are ideologically opposed to organic digital consciousness integration. Your choice regarding the Galactic will signal to these powers what kind of spacefaring civilization humanity intends to become." Jake's strategic thinking kicked in. "So helping you makes us targets, but it also makes us allies with an advanced civilization that could help defend us." "More than that," Kethver explained, and the crystal began displaying star maps, showing the positions of various civilizations throughout the local galactic region. "The Galactic spent 50,000 years establishing monitoring stations and defensive networks throughout this sector. If you help us return to physical form, you inherit not just our technology, but our role as guardians of developing civilizations." Samuel was frantically recording the star map data. "You're offering us membership in some kind of galactic protection alliance. We are offering you partnership in the continuation of the work we have done for millennia, nurturing young civilizations, protecting them from exploitation, and helping them find their place among the stars." Alina felt the magnitude of the choice settling on her shoulders. "This isn't just about saving your species. You're asking us to become something completely different, to take on responsibilities for other worlds, other species. We are asking you to become what you have always had the potential to be," Kethver replied. "Your species' combination of curiosity, adaptability, and protective instinct toward other forms of life makes you ideal candidates to continue the Galactic mission." Yuki was studying the technical specifications Kethver was displaying. The energy requirements for consciousness transfer technology, the computational power needed to maintain digital minds, the manufacturing capabilities for synthetic bodies. This would require a complete transformation of Earth's technological infrastructure, indeed. But the same technology that could resurrect the Galactic could also reverse climate change, provide unlimited clean energy, and give your species the tools to heal worlds damaged by industrial development. The choice is not just about our survival, but about your future. Director Walsh had been silent, absorbing the full scope of what was being offered and what was being asked. "Kethver, what guarantees do we have that this partnership would be truly equal? How do we know the Galactic won't dominate humanity once they have physical form again? You have the same guarantee we are asking of you." trust, Kethva replied. But I can offer you something more concrete. Allow me to share with you the complete history of Kalari civilization, our successes and our failures, our wisdom and our mistakes. Judge for yourselves whether we are worthy partners. What followed was the most overwhelming experience of Elena's life. Kethva opened their entire civilization's memory banks, sharing 50,000 years of history in compressed data bursts that somehow made sense to human minds. She saw the Kalari's evolution from a single planet species to galactic gardeners, witnessed their successes in nurturing dozens of civilizations to spacefaring status, and felt their anguish at the civilizations they had failed to save. She saw the Kalari's mistakes too, worlds where their intervention had stifled natural development, species that had become dependent rather than independent. The gradual realization that the best help was often the most subtle guidance. The final lesson of Kalari civilization had been that true partnership required equality, not dependence. When the data sharing ended, Alina found herself changed, not controlled or manipulated, but educated in ways that would take decades to fully understand. Around her, she could see that Jake, Yuki, Samuel, and even Director Walsh had been similarly affected. Now you know us as we truly are, Kethva said. Imperfect, well-intentioned, desperate to continue existing, but committed to the principles that guided us for 50 millennia. The choice of whether to trust us belongs to humanity, but it must be made with complete information. Director Walsh was the first to speak. The international team will need to experience this as well. This level of decision-making cannot rest. With a few individuals, of course, but time remains a factor. Each day of delay increases the risk of irreversible data degradation in our quantum storage systems, and each day also increases the likelihood that other galactic powers will take notice of your technological advancement. Alina looked around at her companions, seeing the same mixture of excitement and trepidation she felt. What do you need from us to begin the process? 3 things, Kethva replied. First, a commitment from Earth's leadership to attempt the consciousness transfer technology. Second, a location where the first Kalari can be resurrected safely, away from population centers in case of unforeseen complications. Third, individuals willing to serve as bridges between our species during the integration process. Jake understood the military implications immediately. You're talking about human volunteers to interface directly with Kalari consciousness during the resurrection process. The first Kalari to return to physical form will need guides familiar with current human civilization, language, and culture. The volunteers would serve as teachers and interpreters while we relearn how to exist in physical form. Samuel was already volunteering before he'd finished thinking through the implications. I'll do it. This is the linguistic opportunity of a lifetime, the chance to facilitate communication between species. Elena found herself nodding as well. And I want to understand the archaeological implications of everything you've shown us. The sites on Earth where you've left monitoring stations, the way you've influenced human development. The choice must be made freely and with full understanding of the risks, Kethva warned. Direct interface with Kalari consciousness will change you in ways we cannot predict. You will remain human, but you will also become something new. Director Walsh was consulting her communications equipment. The international team has arrived. On the surface, it's time to bring this decision to the appropriate level of authority. As they prepared to return to the surface for what would become the most important diplomatic negotiation in human history, Alina realized that regardless of the final decision, Humanity had already been changed by this contact. The knowledge that they were not alone, that their development had been guided by benevolent watchers, that their future could include partnership with an advanced civilization, would reshape every aspect of human society. The crystal pulsed one final time as they entered the airlock. Thank you for listening, children of Earth. Whatever you decide, know that the Kalari have been honored to witness your species' growth. You have exceeded our greatest hopes for what organic intelligence could achieve. Rising through the shaft toward the surface, Alina carried with her the weight of the most important decision in human history. In the depths below, 2.3 million Kalari minds waited in digital suspension for humanity's answer, while above, the future of both species hung in the balance. The last recording had waited 4,719 years to be heard. Now it was time for humanity to decide what their response would be.